Leopard geckos are one of the most popular pet lizards in the entire world, and for great reason too. They make amazing pets. In fact, this is probably one of the best beginner reptiles you could possibly get. So stick around because today I'll be giving you guys a full care guide on this wonderful species. Before we get started, guys, I want to quickly say Happy Easter to everyone that celebrates. I hope you guys have all had an amazing day. It's Easter right now at the time I am recording this. I just came back from church. I obviously changed to something more comfortable for you guys. I don't know when this video will be out. Maybe it's out tonight. I doubt I can edit it that quick, but if not, it'll be out, the Monday after. But either way, hope you guys had an amazing day. And a quick disclaimer before we get started, guys, I am by no means claiming to be an expert on this species, nor am I claiming that there's only one correct way to take care of really any animal. Today, I'll just be sharing what has worked for me, and of course, that means that it probably should work for you guys as well. But without further ado, guys, let's get into the video. The first category we'll be talking about today is, of course, the enclosure size. The absolute minimum for this, guys, is going to be a 20-gallon enclosure. These are not very, very active lizards, so they're not going to need the biggest of enclosures. Of course, 20 gallons is just the minimum. You can go larger if you are so inclined to do so. Just make sure that there are plenty of hides and crevices and stuff so that they don't get stressed out. I keep Nami here in a 24 by 24 by 18, which is the equivalent of a 45-gallon tank, and she's been doing amazing in it. She's been in that enclosure for over a year now, year and a half more or less, and like I said, she's been doing great in there. These are terrestrial geckos. They're really not great climbers at all, even though they will climb a little bit, but still, you're gonna wanna focus more on horizontal, I guess, floor space rather than vertical space. Lastly, if you're gonna be cohabbing them, and yes, I know it's a bit of a controversial topic at the moment, but it 100% can be done. I've done it in the past before. Just obviously, please make sure to do your research, but if you plan on housing multiple leopard geckos, you're obviously gonna wanna provide them more room than you would give to just one individual leopard gecko. Next, let's talk about temperature and humidity. Providing the proper temperature and humidity is going to be critical to the overall well-being of your leopard gecko. If your parameters are off, it's going to lead to a myriad of problems, including trouble digesting, trouble shedding, poor immune health, possible illness, lethargy, refusing to eat, and of course, eventually that could even lead to death. Like you would for any other reptile, you're going to want to have a warm end and a cool end on their enclosures so that they can adequately thermoregulate their bodies. As far as the ambient air temperatures, warm end, you're going to want it about between 80 to 85 degrees, and the cool end should be between 75 to 78 degrees, more or less. I cannot stress to you guys how important having the right temperatures is. So like I said, I previously did cohab my leopard geckos. I got her, and I call her sister, even though I don't think they were related. But I got them back in 2015 as babies, and they lived together. Never had any issues, never fought. Of course, they were both females. And then her sister passed away 2 years ago. So she was 7. She's actually 9 years old now, which is crazy, but they lived together for 7 years. And unfortunately, that gecko passed away while I was away on vacation, which was pretty heartbreaking. I love that leopard gecko, but essentially what happened is I didn't have a thermostat, and basically I kept the same temperatures, same heating element as I always had when I left on that vacation. The difference is, and I obviously didn't know that, so it was a learning curve, but the house, I didn't know that the AC would automatically turn to this thing called eco mode, where essentially if it doesn't detect a person walking after a while, the goddamn AC decides to just have a mind of its own and turn off and not use the AC instead of just staying at the fucking temperature that like you set it at. So that shit like really pissed me off. Like the AC just decided to just turn off while I was away on vacation. And even though the like bulbs and stuff were exactly the same as it was when I had left, because the ambient temperature in the house had gotten a bit hotter, the temperatures in all the cages got hotter as well. And honestly, it's a miracle that more of my animals didn't die. It's a miracle that she didn't die, even though they were in the same cage. But the thermostats tell you like what the highest temperature is that they've read, and it was like at 101. So yeah, I came back and she was passed away on the warm end, which is really weird. Like I would assume that she'd, you know, try to get away from it if it was too hot. Not really sure what happened there, but yeah, high heat will kill any reptile a lot quicker than not enough heat. So yeah, just a word of warning. As far as night temperatures, unless you live somewhere really, really cold, you probably will not need supplemental heating. I just let it get to room temp at night, which is about 72 degrees, more or less. They are fine with that drop. I've heard that they can tolerate it up to the 60s, like 60 actually, 60 flat, pretty consistently. So no issues there. As far as humidity, during the day, I like it between 35, 45, 50% humidity. They don't need it as dry as you would think. A lot of people assume that this is like, you know, like a really arid desert species. They are not. So 35, 45 is fine during the day. And then at night, it usually spikes to about 50 or 60% humidity. And that really helps them with shedding and stuff. If you're having issues with, you know, getting the humidity up enough, I recommend making like a moist hide. So pretty much just get like sphagnum moss or coconut coir or anything that'll hold humidity, put it in like a jar and then put it in the enclosure. Or it doesn't have to be a jar, it can be like a box, it can be anything. But you put a humid hide in there, it'll save you some trouble, because usually when they get stuck shed, it's on their toes and it's just a pain in the ass to deal with. They can even lose their toes. I'm looking at her now, she has one toe that has stuck shed. So I'm gonna have to get rid of it. This is like a thing with leopard geckos. It's the most annoying thing in the world. They get stuck shed on their toes. But as long as you catch it and you know you help them get rid of it, it won't be an issue long term if you don't ignore it. The next category is substrate. If you're new to keeping reptiles, substrate simply refers to the bedding at the bottom of the enclosure. For babies, it's really important that you keep it as simple as possible. I would advise against loose substrate for babies, and I would go with either just plain, like no substrate, just the actual bare bottom of the cage, or newspaper or paper towels. I know it's not aesthetically pleasing, but it's going to be pretty important because the babies can suffer from impaction, meaning they'll get like they'll accidentally swallow substrate while they're hunting, and it'll get, you know, stuck in their stomach, and eventually it could kill them. So until they're done learning how to hunt like your different prey items and they get their aim down, just keep them on just very sterile, simple, non-loose substrate. As far as adults, you have a bit more options. You can go with sand, you can go with soil, coconut coir, you know, sphagnum moss mixed with something else. You can use even excavator clay if you like. Me personally, I'm using a 70-30 topsoil to sand mix, and that seems to be working pretty well. I have heard that some people are now using a 40-40-20 mix of sand, topsoil, and excavator clay, and that seems pretty interesting. So I think I may try that out next, but yeah, those are pretty much the options you have for substrate. Next, let's talk about lighting. So your leopard gecko is obviously going to need a day and night cycle. And the way that you can accomplish that is, of course, through adequate lighting. So my lights go on at around 9 a.m. and they'll turn off around 7 p.m. So I'm offering 10 hours of light and about 14 hours of darkness. You can do the same thing, or you can go for an even 12 to 12 split, which I think most people do that anyways, but either or is fine. Also, a lot of people think that leopard geckos are nocturnal. I used to think that for a while, but they are actually crepuscular, meaning that they are more active during the hours of dawn and dusk. As far as UVB, it's not, absolutely necessary for them to survive. They can definitely live without it, but I would highly suggest offering it to them, as it does seem to come with a myriad of benefits. If you do choose to offer it, just make sure that it is a low wattage UVB, so something like 6% or something, and that they have spaces where they can avoid the UVB if they so choose to. Next, let's talk about decor and enrichment. This is what's really gonna bring your enclosure to life. So starting with the basics, you're obviously gonna need to have a water bowl. Doesn't have to be super deep. They're not gonna swim in it. Just make sure that they have access to clean water make sure they have access to water every day, and that you clean it out and replace it with fresh water every 2 to 3 days. You also want to include at least 2 hides, one on the cool end, one on the warmer end, but of course you can include more hides than that. Like I said, these guys are pretty terrestrial and they're not very good climbers at all. I have to always be mindful whenever I take her out that she doesn't fall out of my hands. Like, she will not hold on. Like, if I turn my hand over like this, you see, like, she's not gonna, like, she doesn't hold on like say a crested gecko or something would. So that being said, I do like to give her a few elevated areas for her to climb on. Like, I personally have like a few bricks in there that she enjoys kind of climbing, but it's not like a very narrow, thin kind of branch type of climbing opportunity. And I also make it so that it's not so high that if she were to fall off, which is a possibility with these guys, it's not high enough to like where it could seriously injure or kill her. So just be careful when adding vertical opportunities. Just be mindful, these are not good climbers. There is a chance that they will fall off and hurt themselves. But other than that, just try to add as many different textures to the enclosure as possible. Places to climb, places to explore, different textures to feel and stuff, like branches, sticks, stones, leaves, moss, like anything like that. Just, spice up the enclosure a bit, give them things to do in there. Next, let's talk about their diet. Leopard geckos are carnivorous and they will enjoy a variety of insects and worms. Fun fact, their tail is fat because they actually use it to store, stop moving please, I'm trying to use you. Oh my god, I almost dropped it. Okay, I'll leave you alone, sorry. Anyway, their tail is fat because they'll use it to store water and food. Kind of similar to how, God, what is that animal? It looks like a donkey with humps. Similar to how a camel, that's the word, sorry, I couldn't think of it. Similar to how a camel will use its humps to store water in the desert, they'll kind of do the same thing. They can actually go a decent amount of time without food or water. That being said, I do not suggest starving your leopard gecko. Please feed them. But anyways, as staples, I would recommend crickets, dubia roaches, superworms, and silkworms. And then as an occasional treat, you can offer them things like waxworms, grasshoppers, and hornworms. No matter what you're offering though, just make sure to gut load all of your animals. And of course, you want to also calcium dust the feeders at least every other feeding. And then lastly, as far as frequency, you're going to want to feed babies pretty much every day. And then once they are adults, you can thin them out to about every 2 to 3 days is when you'll want to feed them. Lastly, we'll talk about their temperament and handling. This is really where leopard geckos tend to shine. These guys are very, very docile by nature. In fact, I've never even heard of anyone getting bit by them. And even if they were to bite you, it probably will not do much damage. I mean, look at these guys. That being said, if you are to handle them, there's probably more risk to them than to you, especially if you're handing them off to like a small child or something. They're not really small geckos, but they are small for, you know, an animal. So of course, you know, have an eye on them if you were to give them to a kid or something. Like I said, they don't hold on very well, so they can easily fall. Usually when I handle her, I'm actually on the floor because I'm like scared of her falling. So I've been nervous this whole video. But yeah, you just want to be very gentle with them. They're not the most, you know, hardy physically of animals, but yeah, you can pretty much just take them out whenever and they probably won't have an issue with it. She's pretty calm now, but usually when I take her out, like, I literally just let her free roam. I make sure my cat isn't anywhere nearby. My dog, I don't mind. My dog is a sweetheart. But yeah, she just free roams for a bit and then I just put her away. I'll just have her out on my lap or something while I do, like, you know, something for work or whatever. But yeah, she's pretty good with handling. Most of them are. That being said, you don't want to overdo it. If you do start to overdo it, it will stress them out and could lead to problems down the line. So I would limit handling to no more than 2 to 3 times per week, just to be safe. That's the care guide, everyone. I hope you all found it enjoyable and informative. If you did like the video, please, of course, hit that like button and consider subscribing to the channel. I would really appreciate it. If you guys have any questions or concerns, please leave them down in the comment section below. And of course, I will do my best to get back to each and every single one of you. If you guys are looking for other ways to support me as a creator, I do have a merch store. There's some pretty cool stuff in there, so make sure to check it out. I will leave a link to it down in the description below. Lastly, if you guys did not know, I do have a podcast that I do once a month with Riddler from Riddler Reptiles. It is so much fun. That podcast is pretty unhinged. Like, there's pretty much no filter on it. So if you guys want to check it out, I will leave the link to his channel down below. I think we already have 2 or 3 episodes out, something like that. We'll be doing another one next week, but feel free to check it out. It's a lot of fun. I love that guy. He's one of my favorite peoples in the world. I wish I actually should have worn his shirt if I was going to put out this ad, but whatever, next time. This shirt's pretty cool. I know you guys all noticed it. But yeah, that's all for today, guys. As always, thanks for watching and enjoy your reptiles.